But I want to shift us a little bit and talk about what kind of data are your institutions doing to be able to take that charge on now?
That's right.
So as you're thinking about data, can you share with us a story maybe where you found a failure or an opportunity for improvement as you looked at student success and you thought about the ways in which the institution is moving forward?
So I've got several, but I'll let my colleague go first.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And central to my role is working with data and analytics. So we are awash in this ecosystem of data. But it's so key, kind of bringing this notion of skill sets and shifting skill sets back into this particular question for institutions, especially those who are charged with curating and stewarding data and analytical capabilities to move up that data hierarchy of needs, right? So we have plenty of data, but we have to move towards information, knowledge, and wisdom beyond that in order to apply it in actionable ways. And we have, been able to learn lessons around assumptions or interrogating assumptions that we had that were based on conventional anecdotes and intuitive thinking about what student success looks like. And so that often will look like assuming that a certain sequence of courses for a learner is going to be effective in their journey towards their credential or their degree program. But then through examining data relative to this concept of toxic course combinations, killer courses, and so forth, we discovered that our assumptions are often misguided, and so we have to make adjustments. And that's where that capacity for agility and response to that data that we're seeing is so critical, so that we can make pivots in relatively real time in the context of higher education's capacity for real-time adjustment in order to facilitate greater success. That having that data, being able to translate it into information, to see patterns, and then to socialize and educate that wisdom across the campus, especially to folks who are making decisions about the construct and the shape and the attributes of our academic programming, is key. Otherwise, the data exists for itself, and then it lacks value.
Oh, I think that's a great point. We have all kinds of data. We have a big data analytics team. When it comes to the student voice, the data that we have most readily at hand is what we call our COX data. So it's our student end of course survey data. And honestly, coming from the public system, I've been blown away by the response rate that is in the 90%.
Oh, wow.
In the public system, it was around 20%. You couldn't really trust it. But I'm actually a bit suspicious about our data because even though we have this great response rate and it's overwhelmingly positive, I don't necessarily believe it. And so I think I'm bringing a skepticism to some of the data. And it's one of the reasons why I'm so happy that we're partnering with D2L, because rather than asking our students their opinion at the end of a course, I'd like to have data that kind of tracks their behavior.
That's right.
Right? So when did they take a leave of absence? Or how frequently did they engage with a course? I think some of that behavioral data, I think might give us some deeper insights. And for you were asking for a couple of examples. So I'll share where I got some data that wasn't from a survey, but when students started emailing me when I first joined, and I'm treating that as data. It's more qualitative data, but it's when does a student choose to reach out to the president and say, I'm not thrilled with something, or when I go to campus, I love asking these 3 questions. So I'll just bring a group of students together, give them lunch, and I'll say, tell me, why are you with us? What was your most pleasant surprise? And if you were president for a day, what's one thing you would change? And that data, oh my goodness, I know it's anecdotal, but it's so rich. And a big chunk of data I got when I first joined is that while 70% of our students are studying online, fully asynchronous, graduate programs, these are mature students, majority are women, average age 36, they have busy lives, they have full-time jobs, they have kids, they have community responsibilities. Our degree and the way it's delivered provides them with that opportunity to earn that graduate degree and get on, transform their lives, right? With supporting their career aspirations. But they said, we're lonely. With this asynchronous model, I couldn't be pursuing this degree if it wasn't offered in the way it is. But I need to connect meaningfully with people, like in my course with the faculty. And so as a result of that data that came through in emails, now we are embedding optional synchronous opportunities throughout those courses that help people connect in meaningful ways. And a specific example of that is in our Masters of Counseling Psychology program. Our dean recently launched something called our Northern Lights project, and it is connecting students and alumni in Canada's North. They all live and work in remote areas. They want to contribute to developing the mental health of their communities, but they're feeling isolated. And so some optional Zoom sessions that help them connect, to see each other's faces, to hear each other's voices. Because we know right from the research that when students meaningfully engage with at least one other, they're much more likely to continue in the program, but also they're creating their professional network while they're students, and I love that. So we're, through that kind of input, we are making changes.
If I can speak to that and build on it, I love this idea that data is more than just quantitative data; it's qualitative as well. Tech ethnographer Tricia Wong talks about the need for organizations to marry big data with what she calls thick data, right? And thick data are those human stories, those lived experiences, and you can't get that exclusively through empirical, objective, direct observation of quantitative data flowing into a data warehouse from your enterprise systems, right? You actually have to have conversations with human beings. Precisely, imagine that. And so we've been able to do that as well at Southeastern, deploying surveys like the Thriving Quotient that tells us about the degree to which our community, not only our learners, but also faculty and staff, are able to thrive and flourish in the context of our institution. Interestingly, we discovered that the highest degree of thriving was happening not necessarily on our main campus, where we still had a high degree of incidence of thriving, but the greatest flourishing was happening in our distributed off-campus instructional site model across our network, where learners were largely consuming courseware through the D2L Brightspace platform at our institution, but also had immediate access to mentors, to peers, and to communities at those sites. We're a faith-based institution. This is largely happening in communities of worship and churches across North America. So those students are absolutely getting the community of learning that is such a critical dynamic to success in school and able to belong in those spaces. So that was really a big lesson for us, where we had made assumptions like, well, we know the premier campus experience is where students are going to be thriving the most, where they're connected to each other, where they're 100 yards away from where their professor's office is, where they're living together. But no, it's actually in a different context. So data can be surprising, but can also provide insights for the organization that then help us to extend that value across our network.
Go ahead. I just wanted to spotlight one common thread that I've heard in all of your responses, and that's that you're using the data to find the goodness within the communities that you're serving, and you're amplifying that work such that everybody is benefiting from the positive examples that you're seeing across your
you really have to look for strengths and not just deficits, right? And so with deficits, it's a matter of getting up to a baseline so that deficit is able to be mitigated. But with strengths, there's really no ceiling, right? You can continue to lean into that.